Throughout the years, Konami's released a myriad of different skills for a variety of different characters. But the thing is, not every single one of those characters actually ended up getting a fully fledged deck from Konami. And that's really weird because a lot of these characters actually got enough support in order to make them a bona fide strategy. Characters that come to mind include the likes of Bandit Keith, Bonds. Hell, even Chumley has enough to make him a deck. So that got me thinking, what would it look like if Konami actually ended up making all these characters a bona fide strategy in speed duels? And that's exactly what we're trying to explore in this series of mine. So essentially the gist of it all is that I'm going to be taking every single character that has a skill in speed duels but doesn't actually have a bona fide strategy actually built in a speed duel box and or a starter deck. And I'm going to try and build a strategy based around what skills they have available to them. But the catch is, the deck that I built for these characters can only include cards included in speed duels. Additionally, it has to make sense with the character in mind. That means that a character like Bandit Keith shouldn't be playing a card like Jinzo in his deck just because it wasn't a card that was like related to him in the anime, if that makes sense. And finally, the deck I built for these characters should also make sense with the skill in mind as well. But now that we have our restrictions set in place, I would like to ask you guys that if you do end up enjoying today's video, then I would really appreciate if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way of supporting me and I greatly appreciate it. But enough rambling on my side, let's hop on to Dueling Book now. Alright then, so here we are again, and for today's video we are going to be covering none other than Belowski himself, the chillest guy all around. So, Belowski has a really interesting strategy just because it revolves all around Moki Moki as a whole, and the thing is, in speed duels we don't have a crazy amount of Moki Moki support. We have a few things here and there, but for the most part there isn't a crazy amount. So I had to take quite a few creative liberties when constructing his strategy, and you'll see what I mean once we take a look at the construction of what cards ended up choosing in this deck. Additionally, the skill for Belowski isn't all that great, so trying to build the deck around that idea too, it was a bit difficult. But with that being said, let's take a quick look at his skill so we can get a better understanding of what the deck is trying to accomplish. So his skill reads, apply the following skill. If all monsters you control are Moki Moki monsters, minimum 1, effect monsters can't attack the turn they are summoned. Okay, pretty solid. Once per duel, if you control 2 or more fairy monsters, you can place 1 Moki Moki continuous spell face up in your spell and trap card zone, and if you do, destroy 1 monster you control. Alright then. And finally, once per duel, you can discard 1 card, fusion summon 1 Moki Moki King from your extra using monsters from your hand and or field as fusion materials. Alright. So overall, it's not a bad skill, it's just I don't think it does enough for the Moki Moki strategy. I do like the fact that it does give your opponent like a soft lock, like a box spirit, I believe that's the name of the continuous spell, that prevents your opponent from attacking the turn with monsters they summon the turn they are summoned. That's really cool to keep your cards alive for a bit longer. Additionally, I do like the fact that you get to search out cards like Moki Moki Smackdown. That's really cool. And finally, I do like the fact that the deck doesn't force you to play Polymerization in this deck just because you can fusion them via the skill. I do think it's a bit much, the fact that it's a once per duel restriction, but you know, it's whatever. But as a whole, it's a mediocre skill, not that impressive. I feel like they could have done better for the Moki Moki strategy. Alright, but with that being said, let's take a quick look at how exactly I constructed Belowski's deck. So first off, we have 3 copies of Moki Moki himself. I feel like this is self-explanatory. You need 3 copies of Moki Moki in order to summon out Moki Moki King, and I mean, I feel like that just makes sense. Continuing on, we have Moki Moki Adrift. Of course, there's no way you can make a Moki Moki deck without this card. It's just one of the better pieces of support the deck has, if not like the only piece of support. So this had to be an obvious addition. Continuing on, we have Hourglass of Life. It's another level 2 fairy monster in order to facilitate the skill. It has like the theming of like angelic, like spirit creatures. It's a fairy. It made sense for the construction of the deck. Also, you do need quite a few vanillas in this deck in order to make it work well. Continuing on, we have Shining Angel, gives you access to either Moki Moki or Moki Moki Adrift. Self-explanatory. We have Bonds Alone, which is a really interesting piece of support because this card can facilitate the effect of Moki Moki Smackdown in order to get your Moki Moki swole as hell. So I feel like Konami would have added this card as a little nod to that. Also, it's a fairy, so it still stays in thematic. Now we start getting into the more obscure and more, I guess, like creative liberties on my side. So bear with me. The last 3 cards we have are Guiding Light, Angel 01, and Angel 07. And yeah, these seem like kind of out there, but bear with me. These are all light fairy monsters, and they help somewhat facilitate the strategy. First, all the Moki Moki monsters are level 1, so Guiding Light can have its effect to special summon one of them. So that's really cool as a way to recurse them. Additionally, Angel 01, it kind of just fits with the Angel 07, which is an additional boss monster for the deck. Again, it has like that thematic thing going on with like the halo being an angel, all fairies, like that, you know. So I feel like the deck needed some other form of like playing the game without just relying on Moki Moki itself. I feel like these cards made sense in that regard. But give me your thoughts in the comment section below. After we're done like covering the whole deck, I will give you some alternatives in case you don't like the choices that I did making. Alright, onto the spells and traps now. We have Dark Factory Mass Production. I feel like this is kind of like an obvious nod just because we want to recover our Moki Mokis. Also, Moki Moki's in the art, so that made too much sense. Enchanting Fitting Room is a really cool addition to this deck as well, just because of the fact that it allows you the potential to summon out multiple Moki Mokis upon the activation of this card, so I like that addition. We have Moki Moki Smackdown. Of course, you need all the Moki Moki support you can get. Also, this is an alternative win con for the deck just because it makes Moki Moki huge. Torch of Being Light, again, fits the theme, and you need the turns in order to like survive multiple turns. We have Valhalla, very base deck, makes sense in this strategy. We have a Major Upset, again another card that has Moki Moki in the art, and I kind of like the fact that it kind of helps you come against like decks that are a bit stronger and are able to spam out bigger monsters. It's not great, but I feel like it thematically fits. Hollow Life Barrier, same idea. Angelic, makes sense, keeps you alive. Human Wave Tactic Motions. Human Wave Tactics, again, another card that relies on vanilla level 2 cards that has Moki Moki in it. It's self-explanatory. Order to Smash, your deck predominantly works on low level vanilla monsters, that's why we have a few of them here. So it gives you another way of dealing with a lot of opponents back row. So I feel like this is a really cool addition to this deck. And finally, Waboku. Again, same idea going on. You want to stay alive, and also it fits the theming of the deck. Finally, we do have the Moki Moki King in the extra deck. The card's not great, but you know what? It's part of the archetype. But yeah, as a whole, I like the direction that I ended up taking with Belowski. I feel like it makes a lot of sense, the choices that I ended up making. The deck fits. It seems like something Konami would have potentially done with the cards available to them. But again, in the comment section below, give me your thoughts. What cards would you have taken out? What cards would you have added in? And all that jazz. I did say that if there is a few suggestions that I do have in order to replace some of the cards in the deck. So the following are God of the Third Eye, again another light fairy monster that kind of fits the idea, and if you want to focus on making Moki Moki King one of the highlights of the deck, then you would add this in. Polymerization in case you want to double down on making Moki Moki King. And finally Skull Angel, again fairy, light, it makes sense. So these are my suggestions in case you want to replace like this little package right here. But again, comment section below, share all your thoughts. With that guys, I've been Topsy, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.